Hello and welcome to another video. This one is not going to be on a boiler. We're going to be installing a new magnetic filter underneath the boiler on this system, and what we're going to do is we're not going to use the drain valve on the system to drain the system down because it's not working. Instead, we're going to get rid of the pressure in the system in the radiators from the boiler's drain valve first, and when most of the pressure's gone, then we'll use a wet vacuum or a vacuum cleaner which pulls on water as well. We'll use that to drain the rest of the system down as we progress. I'll show you how we do that in the video, so keep on watching how to do this work. So this is a wet vacuum cleaner, wet hoover, which we're going to use. This is not a very fancy one, not very expensive either, but it is a really helpful thing in tight situations where you haven't got a second hand to control a leak. This hoover is a big help. So first of all, what we're going to do, as I've mentioned before, is that we connect the drain hose onto the boiler's drain valve. We open it up to allow the pressure in the radiators to start coming out of the boiler. The boiler, by the way, is a Potterton Gold Combi. This is the filter, a Fernox TF1 Omega filter, which is a completely metallic filter. It hasn't got any plastic or composite bits to it, so it's got less risk of anything breaking or cracking or de-shaping. So on the pipework underneath the boiler, which sits behind the cupboard, we've found which one is the central heating return pipe and where we're going to fit the filter. So this is a rough location where we're going to cut the pipe out in order to fit the filter. We've got the vacuum cleaner, the wet vac ready. We did try and make the drain valve work, so maybe we could drain the water from the drain valve, but it would not let any water through. Most probably the seal's stuck inside, it doesn't let any water through the valve. Now to look at the contents of the box of the filter. First of all, we've got the two valves which sit on either side, top and bottom of the filter itself. Always select a filter which come with these valves. So this is the drain valve, sits under the filter, gets fitted onto the bottom side of the filter. These are the two seals which will fit on the isolation valves and between the valves and the filter itself. So first of all, I'm going to put the valves on with a bit of magic. This is so put both the valves on the filter itself. I'm not putting any seals at the moment because we're just going to try and mark where the filter is going to go. This is the direction the filter is going to fit, because it gets fitted on a return pipe which is always going back to the boiler. So what I'm doing here is, because this pipe has got a bend, there is always an edge, the last point of the pipe, which is straight before the bend starts. So we've marked that point where it is safe, and the filter's valve can go up to this point or before this point, not onto the bend itself. So always keep it away from the bend. Okay, so we see inside the valve of the filter, we can see how far the pipe's going to go into, as we've roughly measured with our finger where the seating is inside the valve, and this is roughly where it's going to go. The pipe's going to go into the same point we marked on the other side of the filter's valve as well. All right, so this is where the valve's roughly going to fit, and we're going to copy those marks which we put on the filter. We're going to copy those marks, not there because that's the edge of the pipe, we can't go beyond that point. So where the pipe's going to go up to, we're going to put some matching marks onto the pipe so we know where to cut the pipe. So when that piece of pipe is gone, the filter can sit nicely onto the pipework. There's a pipe clip in the way where the filter is suggested to be sitting, so we're using a pump plier to make it loose where it's sitting. Then we can use a long screwdriver to undo the screw. By pushing the pipe gently aside, we've removed the screw, the roll plug and everything, so the filter can now go into place. This is the pipe slice we're going to use to cut the pipe. So because the pipe is sitting too close to the wall, there is always a bit of play in the pipe work, not too much. I usually stick a long or a big screwdriver behind the pipe to pull it away from the wall so we can squeeze the pipe slice behind it. Don't go crazy with the pulling, otherwise it can kink the pipe. Gently just pull it forward. The pipe slice is a bit stiff, so we're using the help of a pump plier to gently and slowly in increments, we're turning the pipe slice and cutting into the pipe. And when it's reached the final cut, a little bit of water has started to come through, but because we had drained most of the pressure in the heating system, so it's not shooting out, it's not spraying out, it's just dribbling out. And we've used our wet vacuum cleaner to pull out any dribbling water which can sort of annoyingly dribble onto the floor, onto the surfaces. So wet vacuum has helped us a lot. So now for the second bit on the pipe, we've cut the bottom. Again, we've used the wet vacuum cleaner to take up any water. Now to grab the filter, again there is an arrow pointing upwards because it's a return pipe. Heating water is going back to the boiler, so the arrow should be pointing to the boiler. Alright, so at this point lots of people will not agree with me to put a PTFE on the olive of a compression joint. Lots of people say that, or majority of the people say that the purpose of the olive is to actually seal the joint, but sometimes the pipes are a bit wonky where you're fitting in a tight location. You'll probably by mistake put the olive at a slight bit of angle, not completely straight. So just to avoid any inconveniences, once you've got everything pressurized up and you see a dribble, that can be a big pain. So put the PTFE on top side of the olive and put the valve on, and with the help of a spanner and an adjustable spanner, we've tightened up the nut, and at the same time I've tried to keep the location of the valve. I've tried to turn the valve so that the pipe behind it is not hindering with the valves, because so many times I've seen that the valves are fitted and everything's done, but when you actually go to turn the valve, it hits either the wall or a pipe next to it or something next to it. Alright, so we made sure the location of the valve is fine. Now for the top one, do the same, undo the nut, put the olive on, and as I've mentioned previously, I put the PTFE on, especially at the bottom part of the olive where the fittings are going to sit, not the nut side essentially. So with the help of proper support spanners, adjustable spanners or pump pliers, we've tightened the valve onto the pipe. Now for the seals, which are going to sit between the valves and the filter, again taking care of the arrow pointing upwards. Now we're going to put the filter in place between the two valves, and there I've just placed the seal, the rubber washer, on the top side of the filter between the valve and the filter. We're going to very carefully do the nut up, trying to avoid any cross threading. Now for the bottom one, the washer, the seal, the rubber seal goes at the bottom between the filter and the valve itself. Alright, so place it carefully that while you're doing the nut up, it doesn't fall out of place and then you have a result of a leaking filter. So always do the nuts up on a compression connection with your hands first, a good few threads with your hand, and then use your tools to tighten up any connections. Okay, so I've just straightened up the isolation valve so both are facing the same direction, so it looks a lot better if they're facing the right way. Then with the help of an adjustable spanner and some other spanners, we've tightened up the nuts which were loose, bead the bottom nut on the pipe. So do the final tightening. The use of this filter, the positive side of this filter, you can very easily remove the main filter off the body of the valve, and then you can, by holding the valve, you can tighten up the connection onto the body sitting between the filter and the body itself. And to stop the body moving while you're tightening the nut up, I've put a flathead screwdriver or a thick screwdriver in where the actual filter fits, but I've done it very gently, not going crazy, not to damage the body or the valve itself. Alright, so you have to support one part and then do up the second connection, be it a compression connection or any connection of any sort. Always support the other side so you're not pushing any weight onto the fitting itself. Alright, so when we're done, we put the filter, the actual filter, on and tighten it up. It just needs hand tightening. You don't need to go crazy because there are two massive O-rings on it. It will not leak if you've done it properly with your hand. Okay, so now both the valves facing same direction. Moving on to the drain valve, which sits at the bottom of not the heat exchanger, the filter. There is a seal inside this valve as well, so place that seal in, do the nut up with your hand, and then while you're holding the valve itself, do up the connection which is going to sit on the valve. So this blanking cap at the bottom of the drain valve on this filter, this is not just a blanking cap, this also acts as a moving mechanism for the valve on the drain valve as well. As you can see, the two slots match the drain valve itself as well as on the stop end on the cap. As you can see, both of them are exactly the same. You can put this onto the valve and turn it, and after you've looked at it, we put the lid back on. And now for the magnet, you have to undo a few threads on this one to remove the magnet whilst servicing or maintaining this filter. After we're done, we made sure all the connections are tight. We've pressurized the system. One of the levers on the filling loop on the boiler was broken, so we've used an adjustable spanner to open the valve. And while the system fills up, we're constantly keeping an eye on for any leaks. We've undone the automatic air vent just to allow any air simultaneously as we fill up the pressure. As you can see, the pressure's gone up. Once we've reached the pressure, we've turned off the filling loop, both sides of it. We've tested everything. The boiler's working fine. there is, and obviously we've done 26.9 checks because we had the boiler's casing off and made sure there is no leak on the filter or not any connections which we've touched or moved. Once we made sure, that is all we need to do to fit a magnetic filter. The basic rules are the same. You drain the system, and hopefully you've learned something new, how to sort of lose the pressure from the system if your drain valve on the radiators on the pipework is not working. So you lose the pressure from the boiler's drain valve, and then with the help of a wet vacuum cleaner, you can drain the system down and do a new filter installation. Now, if you've learned something from this video, if you've liked the video, please give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share the video with your colleagues, with your friends, and anyone you think might need this information or this information may advantage them. So thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.